Hey, Paragon traders, how you doing? Treaters, must be Halloween time. This is Matt Stevenson. Hope you're all doing well. Just wanted to run you through a quick explanation of, for those that aren't very familiar with currency trading and forex pairs and what a pip is and all the calculations that go into it. What are we looking at when we're looking at an exchange rate? We have dominant pair orderings. It can get confusing. At least it was to me at first. Um, so I want to run everybody through, how we calculate everything that we need to calculate, because one of the most important things in our trading is when we get to our risk management. And with risk management, we're talking about obviously position size, because we need to know, because in risk management, we need to know how much we're willing to lose on any one trade, right? Well, how do we know any of that unless we know our account size? Where our account size should be pretty easy, right? Let's say $10,000 or $100,000 is our account size. Well, that's great. And then if we have our risk management protocol, let's say we want to risk $1,000 maximum on any one trade. Well, you can't just tell that to a broker. Actually, some you can, and they'll just plug it in and help you figure out, where to put your stop. But I want you guys to know how to calculate it. And I've always believed that knowing what's behind the calculations helps us all be better traders. All right. So let's just start with the basics. You know, Currency pairs, they're always traded in pairs, right? Because let's say I am from the U.S. I go to London. As soon as I get off the plane, or maybe before I go, um, my dollars, they may be good, they may not, but to be sure, I need to convert them into pounds. So whenever we're trading currencies, we're always talking about a pair of currencies, because I just can't go to London and say, I want to buy pounds. Well, okay, if I want to buy pounds, I have to sell my dollars for pounds, right? That's why they're always currency pairs. You can't just go tell somebody, I want pounds. They're going to say, okay, what do you have in exchange for pounds? Do you have dollars? Do you have yen? What do you have? And then they'll convert it based on the current exchange rate. All right, so we have our dominant pairs. There are 28 of them. Euro always comes first. But I want to talk about what it means when you look at a currency pair. So we're going to be looking at the Aussie CAD today, just because it's the first on the list of dominant pairings. So the first currency listed is the base currency. All right. The second currency listed is the quote currency. So in this case, the base currency is the Aussie dollar. The quote currency is the Canadian dollar. I like that they call it the quote currency because the exchange rate is this. And what this exchange rate means is, if I lived in Australia and I went to Canada and I exchanged my Australian dollars for Canadian dollars, I would get 89.88 or 89 cents, almost 90 cents per 90 cents of Canadian dollars per one Australian dollar that I brought with me. Okay. So that's why I like it that they called this the quote currency, because you're getting quoted in that currency. So whenever we see this, just go ahead and throw the bottom one at the end here, and that's what you have: the exchange rate plus the quote currency, and that's really what that means. So it's 0.8988 Canadian dollars. That's what that exchange rate means. All right, now we need to review what a pip is. We've probably heard it by now. The pip is the fourth decimal place after the decimal. So it's the fourth digit after the decimal. So we know this is the 10 spot, this is the 100 spot, this is the 1,000 spot, this is the 10,000 spot. So it's really 1% of 1%. Any math nerds out there, by moving decimals, that's what we get. So if we're talking about trading one lot is 100,000 units. So if we want to know the pip size in a standard lot of 100,000 units, we multiply 100,000 by this, by 1/10,000th, and we get 10. That'll become important here in a second. So 1 pip in this pair, in other words, this exchange rate in Canadian dollars, is going to equal the exchange rate of Canadian dollars times 10. Remember, we're trading one standard lot of 100,000 units. So, which brings us to, so 1 pip value in this currency pair is 8.988 Canadian dollars. All right. So if your account is in Canadian dollars, you can stop right there. And now you know how much every pip move in this currency pair is going to make or lose you. But if our account is in US dollars, we need to convert this 8.988 pip value of Canadian dollars in this pair, and this is the current exchange rate, right? It can change. So we need to convert that by a conversion factor, is what I call it, to get our pip value in dollars, US dollars. So what do we need to do that? Well, obviously we need to have a conversion factor that incorporates the US dollar with our quote currency, the Canadian dollar. Well, it just so happens that in this pair, the dollar is the base currency. So in the dominant pair involving US dollar and Canadian dollar, it is ordered US dollar first, Canadian dollar second. And you get that quote right now is 1.3819. So, which means $1 equals 1.3819 Canadian dollars. Okay, so if being in the United States, if I traveled to Canada and I exchanged my dollars, I would get 1.3819 Canadian dollar per US dollar that I bring. All right, that's what that means. All right, so we've got the conversion rate in our US dollar pair with CAD at 1.3819, but we need the conversion factor. All right, so 1 pip in our original Aussie CAD is worth that. We've gone over that. Now, how do we get this? All the math nerds out this, we need to be able to get rid of the CAD altogether here in this equation. So what do we do in math? Well, I like the cross-canceling thing, right? Because this was the pip value in our Aussie CAD pair. And I want to be able to multiply it by a conversion factor, but at the same time, cross-cancel the Canadian. So we just have dollars, because that's what we're looking for, the pip value in dollars. That's our goal here. So multiply this by the inverse of this, which is this, and we can cross-cancel the Canadian dollar. So now we have this divided by this number, and that equals 7.2364 US dollars per pip. So every pip move in Aussie CAD equals $7.2364. Okay, up or down. Now, so if you just took a position of 100,000 units of Aussie CAD, that would actually equal $72,364 US dollars. Why? Because again, the 10,000th unit of the dollar pip. So yeah, this is the pip value in dollars of Aussie CAD, but you need to multiply it by a standard lot, and the pip is 100,000. So you need to multiply it by 10,000. So 100,000 units of Aussie CAD is 72,364. Well, what if you originally wanted to trade $100,000 US dollars in Aussie CAD? So what is $100,000 worth of Aussie CAD? Well, we just take that prior 1.3819. Remember, that's the exchange rate of the dollar CAD right now, and we multiply it by our 100,000 units of Aussie CAD. So if you want $100,000 worth of a trade in Aussie CAD, you would make the trade for this many units of Aussie CAD, because $100,000 is equal to that at the current exchange rate. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right. So that is how we calculate pip value. That's how we convert it to the US dollar pip value. And that's how we get units into dollars worth of, of a trade. A lot of people think that when they enter a trade of 1 unit or one lot, it's just automatically going to be $100,000. It's not. So we need to make sure we're converting from the original currency pair that we're looking at trading into dollars worth. So one lot is 100,000 units, not necessarily dollars. The only time it's dollars is if we're in a currency, we're looking at trading a currency where the dollar is somewhere involved, either the base currency or the quote currency. When it's not, we have to convert it if we want to trade $100,000 worth. That's very important when we look at, our position size relative to our risk, because if we don't know, let's say, we traded 100,000 units, 100,000. Let's say we traded one lot of pound dollar, right, or pound Aussie. Well, we think we're trading, $100,000 in pound Aussie. Well, we're not. We've got to convert it to dollars first. Pound is worth more than dollars, so it's most likely that your trade is going to be bigger in terms of dollars than you thought it was, but you're placing your stop based on dollars versus pounds, and that's not what to do. So your loss, if it hits your stop loss, may be more than you thought or planned for, and that's because we haven't converted it yet. So I hope this makes sense. I'm going to send everybody around a spreadsheet that I have that automatically calculates all this, but I wanted you to see how it works beforehand. All right, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll talk to you soon.